The Tales of 1001 Nights. The Fourth Night. The Story of the Ifrit and the Fisherman. Part 1. When the fourth night had fallen and darkness spread its veil over the city, King Shahbazar, the tyrant, hastened back to his private chamber. His heart was restless, for the tale Scheherazade had begun, the story of the Ifrit and the Fisherman, had been left unfinished, and his mind burned with curiosity to hear what fate would unfold. Scheherazade, perceiving his eagerness, lost no time. With a calm voice and measured words, she began her story. Know, O King of the age and Lord of the throne, that in a distant land by the edge of the sea there lived an aged fisherman. He dwelt in a humble house with his wife and 3 children, and by casting his net into the waters, he fed not only his own household, but also the family of his younger brother, who long ago had journeyed to Baghdad in search of trade and fortune, and from whom no word had been heard for many years. This fisherman, though poor and bent with age, was a man of firm habit and strict rule. He had decreed for himself a law from which he never swerved. Each day he would cast his net into the sea no more than 4 times. If on the first casting even the smallest fish were caught, he would not cast again. And if, after the 4th attempt, he had gained nothing at all, he would return home empty-handed, submitting his fate to God. Now it came to pass on a certain day that the old man rose before dawn and made his way to the shore. He cast his net into the sea and sat waiting as the sun climbed higher. After an hour had passed, he began to draw in the net, and finding it heavy, his heart leapt with joy. Yet when he hauled it ashore, he was struck with astonishment. For tangled in the mesh was not a fish, but the carcass of a dead donkey. Sighing, the fisherman cleared his net and cast it once more into the water. Again he waited an hour, and again the net felt heavy in his hands. Hoping that many fish had been gathered, he drew it in swiftly. But instead of fish, he found a small jar caught within the cords. The fisherman's eyes shone, for he thought, perhaps this vessel holds treasure or gold coins. Without delay, he broke the jar open. But alas, from it spilled nothing but sand and stones of the sea, and his hope was turned to bitterness. Compelled by need, he cast his net for the 3rd time and waited. When the hour had passed, he drew it in, only to find that the net came up utterly empty, dripping water but holding nothing at all. Still clinging to hope, the fisherman resolved upon his 4th and final casting. Perhaps, he said to himself, God will grant me at least a single fish. He threw the net and waited patiently. After a time, he began to pull it back, and he felt that it was heavier than on the first 2 attempts. Rejoicing and full of expectation, he hauled it in with all his strength. Yet once more his fortune betrayed him, for there was no fish in the net, only a great jar, far larger than the one before. This jar was unlike the first. It was sealed tightly with a strip of animal hide, and upon it were stamped 4 seals, bearing the signet of the prophet Solomon, peace be upon him. When the fisherman beheld the seal of Solomon, his heart overflowed with joy. He was almost certain that within the jar lay gold coins, or perhaps a map leading to a mighty treasure, for what was sealed by Solomon could not be without great value. At last, he thought, my misery shall end, and I shall set my own household and the family of my brother upon the path of comfort and ease. He shook the jar again and again, hoping to hear the clink of gold within it, but no sound reached his ear. Then, in haste and excitement, he broke the seal and tore away the hide, peering into the mouth of the vessel. To his amazement, the jar, though heavy, contained nothing at all. Instead, a thick black smoke poured forth, rising and spreading through the air in an instant. The poor fisherman, now stripped even of hope, gathered his net and prepared to return home empty-handed. But at that very moment, a dreadful sound struck his ears. From the swirling black smoke, there suddenly emerged a monstrous Ifrit, vast of body and terrible of countenance, his face aflame with fury and his voice like thunder. The Ifrit did not look at the fisherman. Instead, he fell upon his knees and cried out in a voice of supplication,
"O Solomon, prophet of God, I beg you for mercy. By your greatness I swear that if you spare my blood and do not slay me, I shall never again sow discord and shall obey all your commands."
The fisherman, trembling and struck dumb by what he beheld, answered with fear and bewilderment,
"Why do you speak such nonsense? There is no Solomon here. He has been dead these many thousands of years. I am but a poor fisherman who cast his net in hope of fish, and instead of fish, I hauled up you and this jar."
When the Ifrit heard these words, a wicked smile spread across his face. He said,
"Then you are not Solomon, but a mortal man. Know then that your time has come, and the hour of your death is upon you."
The wretched fisherman, his heart seized by terror, replied,
"O Ifrit, I drew you from the depths of the sea and freed you from this jar, in which you were imprisoned for I know not how long. Is this your gratitude, that instead of rewarding me with gold or treasure, you now seek to take my life? Do even the Ifrit return kindness with cruelty?"
The Ifrit answered in rage,
"Speak no more. The only reward I grant you for freeing me is this. I shall allow you to choose the manner of your death."
Seeing no escape, the fisherman asked in despair,
"O Ifrit, what has befallen you that you repay my favor with death?"
The Ifrit replied at once,
"My tale of vengeance is long, but were you in my place, you would surely do the same."
The fisherman, realizing that his life was measured in moments, sought to delay his fate by drawing the Ifrit into speech. Thus, he said,
"Since you are resolved to take my life, grant me this final request. Tell me the cause of your hatred, so that at least I may know why death is intended for me."
Then the Ifrit began his tale and said,
When Solomon, peace be upon him, was granted prophethood, he summoned all creatures and commanded them to believe in God and worship him alone. All beings obeyed, save for my people and myself, for I was king over the realm of the Ifrit. Not only did I reject his call, but I rose against him. One day, Solomon sent his chief minister to summon me. When I stood before him, he invited me to believe in God. I refused. He then commanded that if I would not believe, I should at least cease turning others away from faith. When I rejected this also, his anger was kindled. He imprisoned me within this jar, sealed it with his signet and the hide, and cast me into the depths of the ocean. While I was trapped in this jar beneath the sea, I swore an oath that whoever freed me, I would shower with such gold and jewels that his descendants would live in wealth for generations. But after 700 years passed, and no one came, I withdrew my vow and swore instead that whoever released me thereafter, I would kill without mercy. Now 300 years have passed since then. You have freed me, and by my oath, I must take your life. So choose swiftly the manner of your death, or I shall choose it for you."
The old fisherman, seeing death standing but a single step away, resolved to attempt one final stratagem, hoping thereby to escape the talons of fate. He turned to the Ifrit and said,
"Very well, all that you have spoken may be true. Yet it is shameful for one who calls himself the Prince of the Ifrit to utter such a falsehood. Would it not have been better had you said that you were passing by this shore, saw the black smoke, and came here to bring about my death? Why persist in claiming that you emerged from this jar?"
At these words, the Ifrit's fury boiled over, and he roared at the fisherman.
"O mortal wretch! I am the Prince of the Ifrit. Why should I lie to one as insignificant as you? I was imprisoned in this jar, and from it I have come forth."
The fisherman, now more confident in his ruse, replied without hesitation,
"I am certain you speak falsely. How can I believe that a mighty and colossal Ifrit such as you could have been contained within this jar, when your body is many times greater than it?"
The Ifrit, no longer able to endure the old man's words, cried out in rage,
"O ignorant fool! To prove that the Prince of the Ifrit does not lie, I shall enter this jar before your very eyes, so that you may see how I can be contained within it. But once I emerge again, I shall take your life in the most agonizing manner."
Then he gathered his limbs to his chest, and little by little, amid curling smoke, he shrank and crept back into the jar. The instant the Ifrit was wholly inside, the fisherman leapt forward, drew the hide over the mouth of the jar, bound it tightly with rope, and sealed the vessel once more, imprisoning the Ifrit within. Only then did the Ifrit realize that the fisherman's cunning had returned him to captivity. He began to wail and beg, crying out that he had erred and that, if granted freedom, he would bestow upon the fisherman whatever he desired. But the fisherman refused and reminded the Ifrit how he himself had shown no mercy, and how he had intended to take the old man's life in return for kindness. Still, the Ifrit pleaded, saying,
"Release me this time, and I shall grant you a reward that will make you and your family happy for the rest of your days."
The fisherman paused and reflected, then answered,
"No, I cannot trust your words. I fear to meet the same fate as the sage Ruyan and the king Yunnan. Yet now I grant you a choice. Shall I hide you in a remote cave, or shall I cast you back into the sea?"
The Ifrit, knowing that his hope of freedom was nearly lost, replied,
"Cast me back into the sea, that perhaps another fisherman may one day find me and free me from this jar. But before you throw me into the waters, I ask one thing of you. Just as I told you my tale, so too tell me the story of the sage Ruyan, and then return me to the sea."
The fisherman, being a man of compassion, agreed and began his tale.
In ancient times, in the great land of Persia, between Tabaristan and Dalaman, there lay a region called Ruyan. It was ruled by a sovereign known as the King Yunnan. This king was stricken with a grievous illness, and his body was covered with white patches. No physician and no remedy could cure him. At last his counselors said to him, "There is but one sage who may yet heal you, and he is known as the sage Ruyan." But the sage had long since departed from that land, and none knew of his whereabouts. Therefore the king commanded that all cities and villages be searched until the sage was found. At once the king's horsemen and heralds rode out, scouring towns and countryside alike. Now the sage Ruyan, who was skilled not only in medicine but also in alchemy, and who spoke 5 tongues, Persian, Indian, Arabic, Roman, and Greek, heard the call of the heralds on one such day. He resolved to present himself to heal the king. On the following morning, he set out for the city of Ruyan. After some hours he arrived, and informed the soldiers and guards of the palace that the sage Ruyan had come to cure the king. When the king heard this, he rushed forth in great agitation, leaving the hall of his palace, and went to meet the sage, so that he might recount to him the tale of his affliction.
At this point, dawn broke, and the light of morning crept across the sky. Scheherazade saw that King Shahbaz had fallen into a deep sleep. Rejoicing that her life had been spared for the fourth night, she withdrew quietly to her chamber, intending to continue the tale on the fifth night. Thus ends the fourth night. The continuation of the story of the Ifrit and the fisherman shall be told on the fifth night. Farewell.